skull bubbles for Peter. Mike Keneally tune, very good version of it on YouTube. I suggest you go and look at it. Really good guitar sound. Great player too. Really good player. As you'd expect for an ex-Frank Zappa man. I'm here to mark the first of the month, 1st of February. Hello there. Answer a couple of questions, pass on a couple of tips. Many of the most disorganised and unprofessional of players passing on tips might seem a bit funny, but we'll give it a go. 1971 Goldtop was asking about how I might have looked years ago. That is, I hope you can see it without reflections and what have you. 15th of March 1977, a band called Bilko, Vince Smith on bass, vocals, Chris Manning, singer, the late and much missed Dave Campion on drums. That's at the bar in Bedford College in Regent's Park in London. And by the end of that year, thanks Alison, by the end of that year I had short hair and was wearing a suit to work, so big year for me. missystu asked what picks I like. My favourite pick for feel and sound and everything is a small celluloid Fender Teardrop. Heavy. Dunlop are good in one way, bad in another way, in that they've given sort of too much choice. Fenders, the 3.5 ones, which are the sort of regular shaped ones, the 4.5 ones, which are slightly smaller, and these, which I can't remember the name, the number of, they just come in light, medium and heavy, which seems to be perfectly adequate to me. So small, heavy, celluloid Teardrop pick is my pick of choice. It's nice and small in the... I don't like pick sort of above that knuckle joint, if that makes sense. And the 3.5.1s are just... there's just too much of them, you know. They sound great. That's what, you know, what would pass for a sort of, as near as damn it, a standard pick, a Fender 3.5.1. They sound great, but they're just a little bit too big for me. And I like to, you know, I like to have no impediment. There are other companies that make similar picks. I use Clayton's as well in a kind of Delrin sort of material, although I think Delrin is a DuPont trademark. I apologise if it isn't. Clayton also make a similar pick in a material that they call Ultem, which they claim or is sold as sounding like tortoiseshell, and I've got some of those, and I've got some old tortoiseshell picks, and it doesn't sound anything like tortoiseshell. On the subject of picks, the mighty Brinsley Schwartz we were chatting about picks and what have you, and he passed on a tip to me that I'm going to pass on to you, which is so obvious, but I don't know why we don't all do it all the time. When I started playing in the 60s, it seems like the sort of default pick was Herco. Almost as if, you know, if you were going to find a pick in the street, which is the most unlikely thing, but if you were going to find a pick just lying in the gutter, it would be a Herco. I don't know why I've got it in my mind that they were an Italian brand. I might have made that up completely. Now, as with Sharkfin and so many other things, they're owned by Dunlop. They do two sizes, helpfully described as Flex 50, which are the gold ones, they're quite whippy, and Flex 75, the silver ones. And they're nylon, same shape and size as a Fender 3.5.1, and they sound perfectly fine. They don't necessarily suit me. Don't necessarily suit me size size-wise, but they are, you know, if you were gigging, they're really kind of difficult to drop because the grippy surface has got really pronounced little nodules. Pardon me turning me back on you. That doesn't sound in tune to me, but I don't know. Anyway, the playing surface, perfectly pleasant, clean sound, crisp enough. The nodules are so pronounced that if you turn around and play with the gripping surface, you can introduce distortion into your sound. So if you've got a little clean amp like a Champion 600, you don't need to buy a distortion box. I mean, if you want sort of heavy metal type distortion, obviously you're going to need to. But you can add real texture just by turning the pick arounds. It's the most amazing thing. I've had to sort of prevent myself from doing it all the time. It's great. It adds real texture to the sound. So. And it works on upstrokes and downstrokes because the nodules are very pronounced on either side. If you have a Jim Dunlop branded nylon pick, it won't work because although it's got the gripping surface, the nodules aren't as pronounced as with Herco. So most overrated pick in the world, Jazz 3. It's so hyped, this pick, and it should really work for me, but I can't get on with them. The point's just a little bit too pointy, and they're just a little bit kind of, I don't know, there's something not right about them. Celluloid teardrop, that's for me. Saw a video by Paul Verheyen on vibrato and set my vibrato up. This is a nightmare really because I'm starting out of tune, so it's not going to. And he's got his vibrato set up. You'll see that the claw is at an angle, and this is something you have to adjust and play with and what have you. And the idea is that you enable your vibrato bar to raise the top string a tone by pulling it all the way up. The the top string a semitone. The B string a tone, and the G string a minor third, and I've got problems here at the moment because it is so cold. The guitar is freezing, so everything's not working exactly as it should. But trust me, it stays in tune well enough for gigs. Recording, you know, you might need to do a little bit more tweaking, a little bit more settling in of strings. I use a little bit of, sometimes use lemon oil actually as a lubricant, but Vaseline and a 2B pencil. And the other thing that he doesn't talk about, but again Brinsley does, the string tree should not be down on the face of the guitar. I mean, the ideal are those tusk things, but they're so ugly. But the string should go from the nut, should go down to the string tree and down again. If the string goes down to the string tree and then up to the tuner, that is a snag waiting to happen. On this, I've used a little bit of cable, chopped up old guitar cable, a bit of sleeve to raise it, and not only has it raised it, but it's also, because it's soft, the plastic, it's allowed it to tip back a bit, so the string tree doesn't really exert much in the way of pressure on the string. Does that make any sense at all? I urge you to go and check out Mike Keneally's Skull Bubbles. I shall come back next time with a backing track and not any of this nonsense. Oh, and in that picture, by the way, to forestall any questions, it's not a real Les Paul, it's a copy. And I've never owned a real Les Paul Standard. And on that heartbreaking note, I'll bid you toodaloo. I'll see you soon. Bye now.